is hiring for, and even if even if that's like not a position, even if there's not a position that matches your skills, if it's a company you're interested in, if somebody's posting like that there are jobs available, usually they're like willing to answer anyone's questions about the company. So like those are good people to like reach out to. People who are like already posting about jobs are ready to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, I love that. It also reminded me of the tip that anyone whose profile on LinkedIn says they're hiring, that's also a good one to reach out to. Okay. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Melinda.
Okay, great. We're gonna jump into interview prep, telling stories during interviews. Okay, actually, I'm gonna go inside because this dog is barking a lot. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so in this program, you will notice that we don't talk about interview prep in terms of trying to memorize and practice answering all of the questions. We don't do that because your job during an interview is to just use any interview question that comes your way as an opportunity to show that you're the right person to do the job. And the best way to do that is to tell stories. You're going to use every interview as an opportunity to tell a story that builds trust and inspires confidence. And just there's a lot of things to remember today, but remember that every interview question is designed to be answered different ways, which is why one company can ask the same interview question to 10 different candidates and it works. We will at some point review the 20 common interview questions, but we're not even ready to do that because we're only going to review those as an opportunity to practice telling stories. So, how to tell a story. Unlike other interview prep, we're actually going to lead with a key result, or we're stating the impact or the outcome of the story first. Then we're going to use whatever storytelling structure we're most familiar with. Any thoughts on why we want to lead with a key result first?
You'll get someone immediately interested in the story that's coming.
Boom. Yes, exactly. Your goal throughout the whole interview process is to keep getting them interested in you. And when you lead with, wow, actually prioritization is really important. In fact, on this recent project where we had to deliver 10 features within X amount of months, you did what? Now I'm listening and I'm engaged on a different level. The other reason too is that now I'm not trying to figure out why this is important. Brains just want to understand. And if they don't understand, that person might be sitting there like, why are you telling me? Okay, what is the point? But they know the point from the beginning and they know that it's good and they know that it's interesting. So you're going to lead with your key results. Then you're going to use whatever storytelling structure. What stories are you going to tell? Actually, before we go into that, let me put this to the group. How are you going to choose what stories you're going to prepare for an interview?
Link it to a key result and a transferable skill?
Yes, exactly. And you're gonna take that key result or transferable skill and you're gonna map it to bullet points from the job description. And then choose, yes, the most impactful key result or relevant transferable skill. That's exactly what your job is when you prepare for interviews. All of us will have a map of our examples and stories ready to go just based on our key results. And then before interviews, it will be our job to go in and review that job description and figure out which ones we're going to tell. And then in the later stage interview prep, it'll be a little bit more in depth than that, but we'll get to that. But yes, this is why the foundation of the program is what are your key results? What are your skills? And then everything builds from there. Okay. So you're going to take the bullet points from the job description, map them to your key results or transferable skill. You're also going to list an example for that key result or skill area that's most relevant to the job description. and then you're going to build your brief and concise story. You want to do that for each interview that you're going into after phone screen prep. So this is not how we prepare for phone screens. Remember we had the other session where they're going to ask you like 5 questions. Follow that for phone screen prep. But for every other interview right after phone screens, you're going to grab 5 bullet points from the job description that resonate most with you, map them to key results and transferable skills, then do your story outline. So it's bullet point from the job description so that you know what you're looking for. Then your most relevant key result or skill area. Then what was the situation? What was the most challenging aspect? What was the solution? To build your best story, state specifics of what you owned or specifics of the constraints or challenges. Being vague in general isn't actually going to help us, even though that's the tendency because we're almost afraid to go into too much detail. Going into the details is what we want to do. We want to point to an interesting problem or an interesting solution. Sometimes a problem can be very simple and run of the mill, but the way you solved it was innovative, right? Drop a name brand when you can to make it more memorable. Include numbers or statistics when possible to make it more concrete. And just in general, raise the stakes as much as makes sense, right? If there's something that happened in this story that shows your ability to think creatively, to problem solve, make sure it's there. Don't be afraid to throw out that piece that really makes you shine. That's what you want to do. A couple notes on keeping it conversational. You are not a robot that has to have an instant response and a perfect response to every interview question. You get a chance to think and a chance to tell your story. So just think like a human and don't worry about the rest, right? How are you going to have a conversation? How are you going to build in time? That said, everyone asks how to do that. So you can just kind of, whatever they said, you can repeat it back in terms of like, oh, I think about this a lot. I think about prioritization a lot. Then it was really important when I state your key result, then go into your story. Or, oh, stakeholder management is one of the most important areas of product management. When I was doing key results, then go into your story. If you need a minute to gather your thoughts, take it. This is pretty critical. Let me jot down a few notes. I've actually put some thought into this. I want to make sure I do the topic justice. Look at your notepad, take your notes, come back and answer and say, yeah, you know what? Thanks for giving me a second. One of the reasons why this recent project where I was on, and then key result story. So you do get to take a minute. You do get to be a human throughout this process. They'll be impressed. No one is ever going to be unimpressed by you saying you want to take a minute to think. You want to take a minute to jot down some notes. There's a lot more in the what not to say in an interview to help with this part throughout the interview process. And I will just say one of the most important pieces of what not to say in an interview, and you can review that on your own, is if someone takes you by surprise and they throw you out in the deep end and you have no idea what to say, you can take a minute and say, oh, thanks for bringing this up. This is a new area for me. My approach to thinking through this would be, and then kind of talk through your approach. So not everything is always this perfect key result and then story, right? Sometimes they're going to throw us out in the deep end. Sometimes we're just going to tell a story or answer a question. But we're always going to take a minute, and we're never going to throw ourselves under the bus. We're never just going to look blankly at the person and say, I don't know. I have no idea. We're going to say, oh, this is a new area for me. Let me ask you a couple of questions to get some context, or let me take some notes, or my approach would be, or this is a new area for me, but I love learning new things. In fact, and then go to your story about when you learned a new thing. And actually everyone, once you start interviewing, you should have a story written down about a new thing that you learned so you can have that in your back pocket as a go-to. Okay, any questions about storytelling? Rita.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about how long shall the stories be?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how long your time is with the person, but your goal is to be concise. So you don't want to take 10 minutes to answer one question, but whether you're taking 3 minutes or 6 minutes might depend on the question, the point in the interview, who you're talking to. So that's just, you're gonna be able to figure that out based on the person. And also, the other thing too is just look for the visual cues. If you start telling a story and you realize you've been talking for 5 minutes, take a look at the person and did I answer your question? And you can just kind of stop and say that. But yeah, that is something that just comes with practice, but 3 to 5 minutes is a good rule of thumb.
Wait, three
Thank
to
you.
5 minutes for your answer?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
If it's conversational, if you're telling a good story, if you can tell it in 2 minutes, even better. But interviews should be conversational. Not for every single question, I should say. Like if someone just says, well, do you have Salesforce experience? Then you're telling that story much faster. Oh, actually, yeah, I love working with Salesforce on this last project where we had to convert, increase conversion by 3%. We use Salesforce for XYZ. Da, da, da. When you really get into it, you're stating specifics, you're stating constraints. And when I say tell your story, that's also could be the whole conversation about your story could be 3 to 4 minutes. Like they might have questions in there too. Like remember to keep it conversational.
Melinda, I'll just share that I was trying to share it in the chat and I'm having a document issue, so I'll look at it after and put it in Slack. But I networked with someone from a technology company this week, and it just happened that later in the week he made this post and he said, I'm doing a lot of interviewing at the moment, and there's one big thing I'm noticing. Most people at the initial interview try to sell themselves too hard. And he goes on to say that they're doing 80% of 80% of 30 minutes is a monologue. And it's really interesting. I will try to add it in, but he's actually given some questions and said, better to start also with questions or finish your story with a question so that invites them to add more information. And it resonated with me because I did it myself once, in my earlier interviews, that I just talked too much. So I think that I'll cut and paste it in another format and add it.
Yes, that is so true. You really want to keep it conversational. You don't want to talk over them. You don't want your stories to go on too long, but you do want to put them in the context in such a way that they can ask those follow-up questions. I love the ending with a question when that makes sense. Yes. Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
What if there is not a specific job description?
Yeah. Then whatever it is that you know about the job, you're going to find the key results and transferable skills most related to that. So then you just basically ask, okay, why would I be doing this job? What will I own? And create your own sort of like, these would be my metrics, these would be my responsibilities, and then build your stories from there.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get too far into the process without a job description, but that can happen. Absolutely. Okay, so we're gonna do an exercise in pairs. Everyone should pull up a job description. And you're gonna read the first bullet point to your partner, then just talk through some discussion questions. So we're gonna go into the breakout rooms for 12 minutes, so you'll each get 6 minutes to kind of focus on your area. And the discussion questions, okay, what work have you done that is most similar to this job area? What was the impact? What was challenging? What did you see that others didn't? Why should you get a raise for this work area? And you can feel free, whatever you have in that 6 minutes, if you talk through one bullet point and then 2 bullet points, 3 bullet points, talk through these questions, great. But ideally you're getting at some example, a key result, or a transferable skill related to a point on a job description. Does anyone have questions about what you're about to do